Sick. Let's just dive right in. It's been a little while, so I'm stoked. We got Gunnar here, and why I'm so stoked to chat with you is you're not in your like 40s,
right?
And you're super involved, but you've been successful. I feel like we come from similar backgrounds, and I mean, at least for me, is like I was kind of in my lane, like building my things, and never really like keeping up to like look what was like going on until like the last couple of years. And now I'm like, oh shoot. But you've been doing this way longer than I have been.
Yeah.
So like right now you're on the SEC. What even got you to where we're here now?
So, I mean, like you said, I've been doing this a while. It started in college for me. I just joined like a local club. At the time, the only thing on campus was Young Americans for Liberty. And so I joined that. I wasn't too into the political philosophies and stuff like that at the time, but I had done the Republicans Club, but the only event that they really did was this debate with the Democrats, and they had like one event per year, and it was cool. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm definitely like more to the right than the left. But the actual like activists on campus that were doing, they'd bring these huge speech balls and they'd roll them around campus, and they'd have everybody signing them, and they'd do like these petitions for free speech, and they were like just actually battling on the ground to like raise awareness for issues. And it was this libertarian think tank. And so I'm like, okay, let me, try this out. So I joined them, and through their events, I really like got exposed to libertarian ideology, and just like, oh wow, like statism is horrible, and like the government is, just using violence to, force their, agenda on people, and taxation is theft. I was completely like, exposed to this philosophy and this ideology that for a while I thought was like the only way, like, oh, I'm definitely a libertarian, die hard, and, read all the literature, and went to their conferences nationally, came back, and as I would like reach out to politicians, they'd be like, oh, yo, that's cute, like, but, we're little L libertarians is kind of what they would say. And, we're kind of libertarian in theory, but in reality, we have to be, more, we have to use the government to get what we want done in society. And so I think over time, as working with these politicians, I'd go to these like, they were almost like barbecues, or like they'd have these like cottage events at these parks, and it would be wild. Like I'm there as a college student, and then the governor like shows up, and he's speaking at like a picnic table on a park bench, and like, there's like 30 people there, but like the governor's there, and I'm like, what is this? Like, what is going on here? And then like all these senators and stuff are there. We're literally at a barbecue at a random park, and that's like how like grassroots and local it used to be. Like this was, almost 10 years ago. They just don't do that anymore. And through that exposure, I'm like, oh, cool, wow. Like I am so close proximity wise to like the decision makers and what's going on. At the time, Turning Point came out or became like a thing or showed up on my campus. And so I joined them, and they were like way more establishment Republican-like. They were still like super, in their philosophy, like, big government sucks, socialism sucks, we need to, downsize. And so I was like, okay, cool. Like this aligns with my libertarian sort of philosophy of smaller government and stuff. So I joined them, ran with them, was the state director, and did that for a while. But to answer your question, like to get into the SEC, I just at a local level decided I'm going to run for precinct chair or precinct vice chair or whatever. And showed up, and there was like maybe 20 people that showed up to this thing, and I was the youngest one to be like, I want to run, and I have a vision, and I'm like up there giving a speech, and all these old people were in the room, and they're just like, yeah, let him do it. Yeah, I want to see him do it. And so everyone voted for me, and I was just like, okay, like now I'm this precinct chair. And so then I, was a state delegate, and showed up to my first convention, and it was a ruckus. And, I think it was the first convention where I saw these games being played where, someone got up to the mic really early and shut down debate. they were like, I moved to the previous question. And then the entire crowd just like loses their minds. And then I'm like, I'm walking through the aisles and they're like, how dare they do this? And I'm like, what's going on? And so then I almost got like radicalized by this like grassroots movement of just like, they're here to shut down our voice. And this is, and so I'm like, yo, we need to fight these people. This is crazy. And so, I've been exposed for so long to the grassroots and I, empathize with like, their battle. And it's like, okay, like these people, they just want a voice for the voiceless, and I still consider myself grassroots, but it's like the people who were, shutting down debate or like using these tactics to try to like move through the business. Like now on the SEC, like I have this perspective of like, oh my gosh, like we have wasted 8 hours before on one agenda item and not moved the process along at all, and we're getting nothing done. And now the people that have like volunteered their time for years and years, they don't even want to be involved anymore. They want to quit because we're debating nothing and getting nothing done. And so yeah, they out of them being upset, they've decided to come to the mic at certain points and like move things along, and then piss this person off who like came with their 15 agenda items that they wanted done. And now they feel like they've been, shut out. And so it's like, just through like being actually on the SEC for now in my second term, like I understand both sides. Like I see why people are upset on both sides. And I just try to like empathize with both and try to find, common ground and middle ground with both camps, but realize that sometimes like, one will be right and one will be wrong on various different issues. So it's like, well, we can't just kick this whole side of the party out. We can't just like, take away their voice because they piss us off sometimes or they waste time or whatever. And then on the flip side, it's like, yeah, sometimes the establishment acts like a tyrannical, authoritarian, crazy, group where they're like trying to do some stuff where I'm like, this is not what I align with at all. Like, and so then I'm, fighting the fight with the grassroots and we're like, no, we're shutting this down like right now. So I don't know. I just, through my experience, I've seen both sides. So, I mean, we can get into, specific issues or whatnot, but I feel like I'm in a weird position, almost like on my own political island right now where, I've worked with both sides. And so it's certain people are like, oh, I'll never work with him again. He's betrayed us to the enemy. He was seen in a picture with this person, and I think they're friends, and so I'm never gonna trust anything he says. And it's like, they just don't know though that like 99% of my interactions with some of these people are debating every last word they say, or being like, hey, we don't actually agree on anything, but I'll be friendly to you. Like we can have a nice cordial conversation, but like, no, what you're trying to do to our bylaws, what you're trying to do to the party, you're trying to get rid of the caucus system, you're trying to do this, and that. Like, I don't agree with any of that. So like, yeah, I'm going to fight you on this, but I'm going to fight you with a smile on my face. And like, I'm not going to try to get you fired from your job. I'm not going to try to do, and both sides do that. So both sides, I've seen it from, people in the establishment trying to get like Gowd Maragani fired from his job, for speaking out about, and I'm like, that's wrong. Like we shouldn't be doing that. And then, but vice versa, I've seen the grassroots literally like, want to burn people at the stake because they've, associated with the wrong people or, they've.
Well, that's the crazy thing and why it's been, I think, so wildly ineffective in terms of like the Republicans' grassroots efforts over the years is, you do anything kind of out of line and then they just are like, nope, you're not for us. But like, I think there's a way, like, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people where they have one issue and they have all different issues. It could be literally anything across the spectrum, but that is the hill they want to die on. And they are not going to let that one thing go. And so when you go to somewhere like convention or like any of these meetings where things are being done, you get the little clan of the 10 people that have their little thing they won't let go, but there's 20 of them.
Right.
So it's like, oh, we have like 20 different groups that have their one little hills that they want to die on. You can never address like all the things they want to get done. But I just don't think they want to win their 1 point, but they can't see a lot of times the big vision on how to like actually win overall. Where it's like you start off as this grassroots person, and then once you get into a position like you're in now, you see you're on the other side where you're like, oh, if I want to get anything done, I got to make this guy be my friend. I can't have him hate me.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, the way I see it, having been exposed to the people that actually are able to like get things done, right? It's like if you're talking to the power players at the Hill, right? And let's say that issue for you is hardening the grid. And I bring this up because my good friend Bob McEntee, before I gave my speech as I was running for the national committeeman, he's like, say something about the harden the grid, and you got my vote. And I'm like, harden the grid? Like, what? What are we talking about? And so like, real quick, I'm like, what does that even mean? What are we talking? He's like, oh yeah, if Russia drops an EMP on us, like, or China, then we're screwed. So we need to harden our grid. And he's like, you bring that up, and and anyway, he's a very knowledgeable guy, and I don't mean to make it like
too knowledgeable.
Yeah, I don't mean to make it like his only hill that he dies on. He has a lot of great opinions on many things, but it was funny to me because I was like, okay, yeah, I agree with that. Let me do that. But like to that point, it's like if he were out there burning every bridge with every legislator, and then they get to the point where they're making their big sort of budget and omnibus bill for the year, and like what are they going to pass and what's going to get funded. If he wanted any shot whatsoever at getting that one thing thrown in there to get some funding toward, like he would need to have a decent relationship with enough legislators for them to be like, yeah, we'll throw that in, and otherwise that issue will see zero traction, right? And so it's like, okay, like if he wants to be an effective, party activist, right? He's not a legislator, but if he wants to be an effective party activist to be able to get legislators to throw that issue in, get it funded, get people talking about it, things like that, he would have to have enough cordial relationships with these legislators and at least let them give him the time of day to get that one issue put in or passed, or have one of the legislators write a specific bill on it and get that passed. And so it's all about coalition building, and it's all about having decent enough relationships with these people. And what I've at least figured out is like, I'm going to disagree with these legislators all the time on specific issues, but it's like, how do I have that fight with you without burning the bridge? How do I disagree with you effectively on this one issue?
How do you disagree better?
Right. How do you disagree better? Right. And it's like, oh, wow. Like, and I caught myself saying that one time online, and people were like, oh my gosh, you just want us to disagree better. You're a Cox sycophant. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, it's maybe he saw that, he's been in politics just as long, and maybe he saw that like, you guys aren't able to work with anybody because you take your one hill that you're going to die on. And because I'm not with you on that one thing, I'm all of a sudden an enemy. And like, in the way you talk about me online and to everybody, and you call all your buddies and you say, oh, he's now part of the swamp. You can't trust anyone. Oh, he's now dead to us forever. And then 2 weeks later, some new issue pops up, and I'm the one fighting hard for it, with the banner going, hey guys, we need to fight. And they're like, oh wow, Gunner's a conservative again. Wow, he's back. He's back on our side. What? He's flip-flopping left and right. And I'm like, no, I just disagreed with you guys on that other issue, and I'm not gonna like back down when you show up as a mob and want to like burn my house down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's just funny. And I've seen this happen literally time and time again, where it's like 1 week I'm talking about an issue like Gaza, and I'm like, they think I'm a far leftist, because I'm bringing up this stuff. And then the next week I'm talking about, supporting these deportations or, supporting this crackdown. And they're like, oh, wow, Gunnar just can't make his mind up. Is he part of our team or not?
It's too completely. That's the thing I was thinking this morning is on like all of like my posts, a lot of them don't even say an opinion. Like I'm just like, oh, there's more studies being done on vaccines. Right. That's like one, or it could be like something completely different. And you have everyone showing up. Like, when did I post this? Yesterday? I posted one about mandatory ID of voting, vaccines and voting, very different things.
Yeah.
But the same people show up to fight either side of the coin.
Right.
And like people don't even really listen. They just hear what I'm saying and they'll just start going off on their points. Which is funny, but like your Gaza thing, I saw like some of the comments, I don't even on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I need to talk to this guy. I need to have him in. Because people just so ridiculously will come out of the woodworks to like be either so pro-Israel, so anti-Hamas, which is what I think most people are, but they don't really realize the difference. Yes. They're not like nuanced enough to like look into the actual issue. That's why I'm like, I want to like have a real, because was it our first podcast, Travis, or our second one with Ramsey? Second podcast ever. We had Ramsey, who's from there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it was interesting because he's like, he said he likes Trump, right? Yeah, he likes Trump. Conservative. Yeah. And he's from there. And he's like, people just don't understand that, like, when all this was going down, like, my family had been on the land for thousands of years. My aunts and uncles were farming, and then all of a sudden, half my family gets murdered. That's really what happened. Like, he came to the U.S. because his family literally just, he's like, we were just like farmers. Like, we didn't do anything. And like half my family just one day militia shows up and murders like my uncles and my cousins.
No, there's a documentary about it called Tanchura, and it's insane what they did. I will freely admit, because when we talked about earlier about flip-flopping, like, I will freely admit I was that person that knew absolutely nothing about this conflict. And for the longest time, I just said, oh, Hamas bad, Israel good, let's wipe them off the face of the planet. Whatever we got to do. Like, what do we need to do?
Why are we letting a terrorist organization live?
Why are they bombing Israel every day? Like, just wipe them out of the, let's just bomb them to smithereens. And I think there's a lot of conflicts where I've just kind of like thought that, where I'm just like, oh, whatever we got to do. It's like with Iraq, before we realized they lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. It's like, do we really understand the scale of how many innocent civilians we murdered in Iraq? Like, was that a genocide? Was that ethnic cleansing? Was that, what exactly was that we did? Now, it's like no one will defend Iraq at this point, right? Looking back, hindsight's 2020. But I was that person who just said, oh yeah, whatever we got to do with Gaza, let's do it. But I think it took, for me at least, seeing what that actually looks like on the ground. I've never kind of had someone televise what this conflict is, and call it a genocide, call it collective punishment, whatever you want to call it. I think this is the first conflict at this scale where it's been put in front of our faces, like with social media. It's certainly, we didn't see Rwanda like this in the media. We didn't see the ethnic cleansing of Yemenis in Yemen when Saudi Arabia is sieging them to starvation and death. Millions of people murdered there and killed through siege. We didn't see that. We aren't seeing what's happening in Myanmar like this. And so I think for me, it's just like when I finally saw what does it look like when you're starving millions of people, carpet bombing their entire neighborhoods. What did those neighborhoods look like before?
Well, I don't think people realize, like, so in Gaza, West Bank, Hamas is just like in there with
they're integrated,
but they don't even understand how they even got there.
Right.
So like, I think like a lot of people don't realize that the Palestinians were everywhere, and then like what was it, like the 1940s, they were exiled. So like, what was it, like 1 million people had to leave, and they all got put into this one tiny area where they all lost their homes. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm on one side or the other there. I'm just saying that's what happened. And so you have terrorists literally living in, I don't know how big Gaza is, but I was going to say like New York City space. It's way bigger than that probably.
Yeah, well, but it's like the size of, a city. Yeah. It's like not huge, not huge at all.
There's like what, 1 point.
Yeah. Millions. Yeah. It's super densely populated, and now it's gone. It's completely leveled, and, and whole cities completely gone.
Yeah. Like 90, like I saw a report that over, cause I was like looking into it after looking, we were saying, I was like, well, how much of it is even like been attacked?
Right.
And it's like, oh, all of it.
All of it's gone.
Like 90-something%.
Yeah. And when I've dropped the G word, everybody is like hesitant to use the word genocide. For me, it really came down to, was there an intent to destroy an entire people with what they're trying to do? And if you actually look at what the Israeli officials are saying, they're not just saying our goal is to eliminate Hamas. Their goal is to completely remove these people from these areas, take these areas over and make it greater Israel. Like they want to annex the West Bank. They want to completely take over Gaza. Even Trump has said this, like, oh, we're taking over Gaza. Like God, we're going to move these people somewhere nice. We're going to get rid of these people, and then we're completely taking it over. But instead of offering them voluntarily, like, hey, we're going to, here's where you guys are going to move. You guys have this much time to move there or whatever. They're like, no, we're just going to carpet bomb the entire place, level it, and kill hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians. And so for me, it like became pretty clear this isn't self-defense. Hamas is not hiding in every single apartment building. They're not hiding in every hospital. They're literally pulling out the water pipes. They're destroying the infrastructure there. They're destroying the means of survival. And then they took over the UN aid distribution, handed it over to the Gaza Humanitarian Force, which is run by US and Israeli contractors. And then they set up only 4 aid distribution sites, make them go through a maze to get to the food. And then the entire time they're shooting on civilians and bombing civilians. So when you then are using food as a weapon of war, it meets every criteria of the Geneva and Genocide Conventions for genocide. And so I think we're just at a point in America where Israel is so embedded in our political, machine. Almost every single one of our politicians is bought out by AIPAC. I think it's way deeper than we know. The actual how much Israel has a hold over our Congress. And I think now people are just they're too scared. Like if you're in politics, at least for how long I've been in it, I understand once you've gotten to a point where you owe certain people, enough where it's okay, I'm not gonna purposely speak out like crazy on this if, I owe this person or this person's got my back. And so if these people feel a certain type of way about the Israeli lobby, they've funded all my campaigns. I've been elected because of Israel, then they're not going to call out what Israel is doing. I think I'm just at a point where I don't owe anybody anything and I can speak my mind freely. And the way I see it is Israel wants to systematically destroy this population, or at least to the point where forcefully remove all of them from this land, which the Palestinians, unlike the Jordanians or, the Egyptians or whatever, these are the people that have shared this land with the Jews since pre-Israel, since before the state was created. And
since the Old Testament.
Exactly. And so, and what's crazy is these people lived in peace for millennia. Even when the Ottomans were running the area, it's it was Jews and Arabs. Now it was majority Arab, but then after World War II, the UN comes in, takes over from Britain, what's funny is before the UN took over, before Britain left the area, Britain's idea was, okay, these people should share the land. They weren't even for partition at the time. They said these people should share the land and have equal rights, and we should have one state that the Palestinians and the Jews share. And in theory, I think that would make more sense. It's kind of like America. Any people can come and we all have citizenship and we're going to share this land and that's how it's going to work and we'll all have equal rights. But instead, what we did was we let the minority have the state, and this is only a state for the minority, and they're going to have more rights and more privileges than the majority, and we're then going to forcefully and militarily kick out the majority until we have a majority Jewish population in this area, which is what they did. And that's the Nakba, the great catastrophe, if you will, was that they literally forcefully removed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homes. And again, what does that look like? I think morally right now we're just going, the conquest of war, but it's if we were seeing that play out on social media today, and we are with the Israeli settlers that forcefully remove Palestinians from their homes even today because they can't get a permit. Or, Israel won't give us a permit. We've been living in this house for 10 generations, but because Israel won't give us a permit, then an Israeli Jew from New York can literally show up tomorrow and just kick me out of my home with a gun. I have no rights. No police is going to show up and tell them, oh, no, you can't do that. In fact, what happens is when the police come out, they back the Jewish settler who might not even be from Israel or have Israeli citizenship. But if they're a Jew, then yes, they can kick out the Palestinian who's lived there forever and take over their home and literally live there. And you see this playing out right now. This is happening right now. But in 1947, 1948, they would line up the women and children. This happened in one of the catastrophes in April of 1948. They lined up hundreds of women and children, made them get naked, and then killed them mass execution style in mass graves. And entire cities completely gone. And so it's like, if that's how this state was born.
Well, I think that's like the setting the tone is like, what's the end goal? You know what I mean? And I think both sides have made it clear. Well, I feel like it's unfair to say both sides because I think there's three sides. I think there's the Israelis, I think there's Hamas, and then I think there's the citizens, where it's like the end goal of the Israelis was to eradicate these Palestinians.
Yeah.
I mean, they say they want to move them, and I'm like, move them to heaven, maybe.
Yeah.
And then the Hamas is like built up after all their families were murdered. So it's like, my mind, I'm like, what's the psychology of why Hamas even exists? And what's like the mental state of these people living now?
Right.
So it's like, okay, what happened, but where's everyone at like now mentally because of all of that?
Yeah.
And it's like, if my whole family tree was literally murdered and like my family's starving, someone came and took over our home, and
would you not be radicalized?
Yeah, like how
would you not want to fight at that point?
And so it's like, what is the solution now? And it's like, well, to me, just like taking a step back, I'm like, well, everyone there is going to be radicalized. Everyone on the other side's radicalized. It's like, okay, either we leave them, but like it's not like the bombings every day are going to stop. So I'm like, is normal Israel person? I'm like, yeah, we got to defend ourselves because we're getting bombed like every day, and like who knows? Israel's like, we've been pretty freaking extreme here. Like, they kill 10 of our people, we kill 1,000 of theirs, and they still keep coming back.
And that's the proportionality thing that I bring up too. October 7th was horrific, and I'll say that to the camera. October 7th was horrible. No, I'm not trying to justify at all October 7th. I think 1,200 people were murdered, 700 of which were military. So you're looking at like 300 to 400 civilians that were murdered. Compare that to now how many innocent civilians in Gaza have been murdered. Hundreds of thousands. In fact, some estimates, and it's tough because, it's the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas. But even Israel is now admitting, there's now, 1 point something million Gazans left in this area. But before there was 2.4 million. So it's like, when you look at how many they're saying is there now versus how many used to be there, we're talking about like almost 1 million people that are gone, completely gone at this point. But it's not hard to like think of that when you look at the satellite imaging and you see that it's all been carpet bombed to death. There's nothing left. So yeah, they most likely did murder hundreds of thousands of people. Compared to the 300 civilians, now, were they in barbaric fashion, murdered? And was it a war crime? Absolutely. But now can we ask the same question about what Israel's doing? Is that a war crime? Like, absolutely. And proportionality is important here. And so I think, going back to that earlier point of like, if your state is born, Hamas has even come out and said, like, our problem isn't with Jews, it's with the state of Israel. And for me, I think for the longest time, I just thought, they want to kill all Jews. But in reality, they're like, no, we have a problem with the state of Israel because we have no rights, we have no nation, we have no identity. We are a people living in apartheid, and we're living under occupation with no freedom. They can't escape either. Egypt has blocked the border to the south. Israel controls the land, air, and sea. They can't even go fish or they're shot to death. So they're in an open-air prison, which Netanyahu admits himself. They call it an open-air prison. These people can't leave at all. They're trapped, and they have no rights and no freedom. So and then play that out over multiple decades. Play that out over generations and the last election they had was 2006, and Hamas rigged that election.
Well, if you look at the average age, too, of even the people that voted for Hamas originally, it's like 3% of the total population now even voted for Hamas.
Right, because they're all dead.
Yeah.
They're all dead. All the people that voted are now dead, and all the children that are alive now were barely even born in 2006. So yeah, like all of these people are like, what's Hamas? Why? I never voted for Hamas. Like what? So I think for me, it's like we have to have a solution where the Palestinians who've lived there forever, longer than the European Jews who came over after World War II and demanded a state, kicked all the Palestinians out, and backed by Rothschild money and the United Nations, created a state, an ethno state, only for Jews. They have in their policies, Israeli policy, that they have a target population of 60% Jews to 40% Arab. Imagine if in America we said, we want 60% of America to be white and remain white, and this is our target demographic. And then we were going to apartheid anyone that's non-white or non-Christian, right? Like think if we made it a Christian thing. Oh, we're going to be 60% Christian. And so in order to make that happen, if you're a non-Christian, you don't have the same rights. Like people would lose their ever-loving minds, right? It's like, but in Israel, it's a state only for Jews. Before it was created, it was mainly Arabs that lived there. And so, Christians will say, oh, well, the Bible tells them this is their land and they're the chosen people. And so we need to displace, they almost like rationalize. Oh, it's okay that we almost genocided a whole people to kick them out of their land, kick them out of their homes, because this is the Jews' land and we need to give it to them and then let them run an ethno state where they, basically murder their way to a Jewish majority and then always keep it that way. But the Palestinians, this is their homeland, right? The difference between a Palestinian and a Jordanian or an Egyptian is that they view East Jerusalem and they view Gaza and the West Bank as their homeland. Mm-hmm. They've lived there since before the Jews that are trying to take those areas over. So it's like the people whose solution is, let's just remove all the Palestinians and give all of this land to Israel. I think we're just going to have forever conflict with that.
Well, I think even like it's such a weird thing because I'm like, I think there's forever conflict almost no matter what, as long as like, because they've already been so radicalized. I'm like, okay, you move these people.
Right.
Where do they go? Like, other people are like, oh, cool, thanks for moving us somewhere. Even we move you to, I don't know, Hawaii or whatever. Like just somewhere amazing.
Right.
And they're all of a sudden like, oh yeah, it's all good. Thanks, guys. Like, we'll be friends again. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of resentment either way.
Yeah.
And it's like, even, okay, let's leave it alone. And they're like, okay, you guys stay here. We're actually just going to back off completely. Is like God's going to be like, yay, we won. Peace forever.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm no Middle Eastern expert, policy expert. I think it's probably going to have to look like a state that, like Israel itself, has to at some point like become a liberal democracy that is not just for Jews. It's like, cool, yeah, like this is gonna always be a safe haven for Jews, but I don't know. I'm like still trying to figure out my views on Zionism as a whole of like, obviously Jews have a right to an identity, and to a nation state that they can, call their own. But at the same time, it's like, is it only for Jews? Like there's already millions of Arabs living in Israel, but even many of them have come out and said, I'm a second-class citizen here. It's like some of them love it. Some of them are like, I'm not treated equally here, and I never will because this is, by its very nature, this is a state for Jews. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how do we solve this problem? It's like, do we have a two-state solution where Palestinians have their own state, but they're sharing Jerusalem, and so you have it's because these people from their holy books are fighting over the same land. Like they both want to be next to the holy sites and call those areas their home. And so to your point, I don't know that we ever really get over this because Christians, Muslims, Jews, we all have a shared story. We're all descendants of Abraham in a sense, and we're all constantly battling over who's right in our story of, who's God's chosen people, and what's the, is this land just for the Jews and not for the Muslims, or the Muslims belong here too? Or are we all going to share this equally? Or are we going to be part of kicking all the Arabs out, making sure this land is just for the Jews, and sort of supporting Israel in their ethnic campaign of, cleansing and kicking these people out? I don't know.
Well, they've just been bred in violence. Like, I just think of like, okay, your upbringing. Like, if you look at people, like your whole life, you've been exposed to violence and starvation and whatever. It's like, I just don't know how people come out from that and are like, yeah, let's coexist now. Like, hey, it's all forgiven. Let's coexist. And it's like, okay, so then on like the Israel side, I'm like, if I live in Israel, I'm like, well, dude, these people are going to keep attacking us.
Right.
And I'm just looking at both sides where I'm like, okay, how do we help the people in Gaza? But also, like, if you do help them, then what's like the retaliation going to look like?
Right.
And like, okay, we just let it be. But then they were sending bombs over. Like, there's a reason the Iron Curtain or whatever it's called was already there, Iron Dome. And so it's like,
it's tough. I always hear this narrative from people who go, there's no, if we let the Palestinians try to peacefully coexist with equal rights and citizenship and all this with the Israelis, you're going to have a genocide on your hands, and they're going to try to destroy all the Jews. And for me,
I don't know if they'd get that far.
It's
well, because I think they'd try and then they'd just kill them all anyways.
Exactly. And I think two historical examples that we can look at that are very similar is the South African apartheid, when the white minority was ruling the black majority in South Africa, and then what was happening in Northern Ireland. And those that Civil War conflict, they hated each other. And so it's like historians in both scenarios said, there's no way these people can peacefully coexist, and there's no way we can get to a point where these people can live together. What ended up happening in both cases, you had to end the apartheid, and you have to give the minority a sense of identity and representation in the government. If these people don't feel like they can air their grievances to some type of political power that is representing them, and I think that's why this problem is so bad, is that Israel, through Qatari money, helped fund Hamas to weaken the Palestinian Authority. And then Netanyahu, the whole time, is like, oh, I want to keep Hamas in power because it keeps him in power. He loves the constant rockets being fired over. He loves the, fear of, bombings and the fear of like, oh, they're going to kill us one day, And it's radicalized an entire generation or two of Israelis to absolutely hate and abhor the Palestinian people in this area, because Netanyahu has not been interested in peace. He's been interested in propping up Hamas, or at least letting them get away with things. And we have to ask serious questions about October 7th. Was there a stand-down order? How was that allowed to happen? We've had like conservative commentators like Charlie Kirk, who've been out to Israel multiple times, and go, there's no way this could have happened. I mean, this was like one of the most fortified, securitized nation borders ever on the planet. And he's like, I don't even understand how they even got 10 feet across the border with the type of security defense forces that are there. And yet they let thousands of Hamas fighters across the border for hours on end, and they just massacre all these people. It's just crazy. And it seems kind of like there might be questions need to be asked about how that was even allowed to happen. And was that somehow engineered to happen, or like, oh, we're not gonna, everyone, you're off today, like, let's, everyone take the day off. I don't know. Like, it's so, but now what has happened because of that October 7th? Now they've greenlit their project of Greater Israel. Now we're carpet bombing all of Gaza. We're going to annex the West Bank, and we're going to expand our territory, which is what Netanyahu's wanted since the 80s.
Yeah.
So it just you start to ask questions like, was this somehow allowed to happen? Is there like some deep planted Mossad agents in Hamas that like helped orchestrate this or let it happen? Because this,
I don't even know if it needed that much. It just is like, it's just convenient though.
Yeah. Or like, oh my gosh, we're here and they're planning something. Oh, make sure they pull it off. That'd be great for me, like, so I don't know, man. back to my earlier point about South Africa and Northern Ireland, I think we have to give these people better government. And now we're seeing that with the Arab nations and with France and Great Britain. They've come together and they've now said, Hamas, step down, give up your weapons, and allow the Palestinian Authority to come in and hold elections and take over Gaza. And I think that's a path to peace. If these people can, after all the destruction and death that they've seen, if they can just have the little hope that, wow, we're not going to have to be governed by Hamas anymore. We're now going to have like a legitimate election, and we're now going to be able to voice our concerns and fight for equal rights and citizenship. It's like there's like a hierarchy, and Gazans are at the very bottom. But if you're in the West Bank, like you have a different ID card and you can like travel a little bit more freely. If you live in East Jerusalem, you have a way better ID card and you can travel even more freely, but you're still not equal to an Arab Israeli citizen, if you're a Palestinian living in East Jerusalem. So there's like tiers to this apartheid system that they have. But if you're in Gaza, you are literally in jail. You're in prison and you have no freedom to move. You cannot leave. They don't let you. You are trapped in there. And now they're just carpet bombing it, and these people can't leave to the south. They've shut down it. It's completely closed off. And so now they're just bombing them all the way down. And it's like, at that point, according to the, I think it's called the Rome Doctrine or something, if you aren't allowing the people to leave, and then you're indiscriminately bombing all of them, and you've given them no rights and no representation, not only is it an apartheid, but it's collective punishment and possibly a genocide. And so I think we've gotten to this point where these questions have to be asked, and we as politicians here in America, or political influencers or whatever, journalists, we all have to start asking these questions because we're funding this. What separates this from what's happening in Yemen or Myanmar is that it's our bombs. It's our aid. This isn't Israel spending their own money doing this. They're using our money to do this. And so this is an American action through a third party that essentially gives us the ability to be like, oh, well, we're not the one pulling the trigger. But it's like, well, if we're spending the money and we're providing the bombs, and we've also told them we're going to back you at the UN by vetoing any resolution that calls this what it is, we've basically engineered this entire thing ourselves. And so I think that's why we as Americans, we have a moral duty and responsibility to get caught up as soon as possible on this issue, because it's our dollars and our weapons that are doing this. And that's why I decided to speak out. And again, I don't know everything, but I think it just took like a light bulb moment for me to be like, wow, this is crazy. And I'm seeing this with my own eyes. And I am, as a Christian man and a moral man, I cannot condone this. Like, there has to be a different way. Like, if Israel's our ally and we've got to dismantle Hamas, and the only way to do that is destroy the hospitals that they're in or destroy the whatever, then let's be surgical about it. Let's go in ground forces or surgical strikes like we did with Iran. But that's not what they're doing. And it's clear with the evidence that's not what they're doing. And yet when they, with their own mouths, come out and say multiple times, we actually want all these people out of here and we want to take over the land, like, well, now you're saying two different things.
Well, that's the thing, is like both the sides, like, people want to put in their own opinions on what is going on. But I think it's really easy to just look at what Israel's saying and what their government says they want to do.
Yeah.
It's not like it's like they were like, oh, we just are fighting for peace and then we'll leave them alone. Like, they literally said they want to take it over. And so it's like, okay, because to me, I'm like, people just need to decide what they actually want and what they want their tax dollars going to. Because I think most people are like, we don't want to fund wars anymore. That's what I hear. And then now at the same tune, they're like, yeah, but like Israel's like our greatest ally. I'm like, well, we're their greatest ally. Yeah. And so,
well, it's, and that claim alone, I've really been diving deep on why are they our greatest ally? And you've talked to a few military guys. Almost everybody who's fought in the wars we fought in has been like, oh yeah, Israel's never fought these wars with us. They were never in Afghanistan, never in Iraq. They never showed up. And so it's really like our American contractors now running the GHF, our dollars, our bombs. And in all the major conflicts where Americans died, American soldiers were killed, Israel didn't have any forces fighting in those conflicts. But those were Israel's enemies that we were fighting for them, essentially. The 7 wars after 9/11, they were all of Israel's enemies. And so I just, have started asking these questions and sort of going down this rabbit hole just because it's like, when we're at this moment where, I feel the collective responsibility of like, it's our money behind this. Is this the way that we should be getting to this aim? And then like you said, it's listening to them talk about this, like, we want greater Israel. We want to expand our borders. This was what we were promised forever ago. It's like, well, what were the Arabs promised? Great Britain promised them a nation and then backed out on them. The Palestinians have been, and another point that I was thinking of earlier that I never brought up, Hamas has tried multiple times now to broker a deal with Israel where they'll release all the hostages for a permanent ceasefire, and Israel has denied them every time. Because Israel is not actually interested in getting the hostages back. They're interested in not only the full removal of Hamas, but in the removal of the Palestinians from these areas, right? And so if everyone says, oh, release the hostages. If you'll just release the hostages, this wouldn't happen. If you just release the hostages, we wouldn't have this problem. Well, no, if they released the hostages, according to this deal, then Israel would still be after completely taking out Hamas, which I actually think we should do. I don't think Hamas has the right after, October 7th to lead the
many
people.
Other things too.
Yeah, it's like, so yes, Hamas needs to be destroyed, but it's, if they would just release the hostages, no, because they don't want that deal. The deal's been made multiple times now and they keep denying it. And I think so Israel's point is, we don't just want the hostages back. We want these areas to be completely taken over by Israel. And we want you, Hamas, to lay down your arms and completely, give up or, whatever, face tribunals or death or whatever. So now Hamas, they're obviously never going to take that deal, right? Because it's like, if we give you all our hostages, now we have no bargaining chips. You're going to do what you're going to do anyway, which is completely, imagine if this whole global media attention hadn't been brought on this issue. If Hamas had just given up the hostages, they would have just played this out anyway at this point, because their goal is, we want to take over these lands and we want to remove the Palestinians from these areas. So I don't know that, the rhetoric or the talking points on each side is truly like, I don't think either side is truly being honest with each other. And that's where I'm kind of like, I feel stuck in a hard place, because it's like, at one point, I want to back America and be like, yo, America, like we're the shining city on a hill. We're the greatest country on earth. It's like, I just want to demand more from our country. It's like, we as America need to be the gold standard for how we deal with conflict and how we're dealing with helping these people through this issue. And so that comes from us being honest about the history. What is truly going to be the solution that gives these people representation and rights and allows them to essentially, I don't know if secularize is the right word, because it's not, but it's like get with the picture of like, hey, you guys can live in peace and we can have a future here where you're not bombing each other, because you're able to live your normal life without an Israeli settler showing up one day and kicking you out of your house and taking over your land.
That's what the goal would be, is that they could coexist in a land. Like, it's like we've already been in it so deep. You know what I mean? As America, like for me, what difference can America actually make? We've seen a lot of times where we've tried to be involved in countries and it's gone terrible.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably another example of that.
Yeah.
But okay, we're already invested so deep in here. Okay, everyone become part of Israel. Let's make a new government. Does that actually happen?
I mean, it's tough. I think the parallel is like, on the flip side, I see what's happening to Europe with Islamism. I mean, Europe's completely been taken over by radical Islam. And now you've got parts of Great Britain that aren't even, you can't even recognize them, and there's like Sharia law being implemented in parts of Britain now where women can't even walk outside without getting harassed and brutally raped because they're showing too much skin. It's like, and, there's videos of these, women walking around the streets of, very predominant parts of London or whatever. And, these gangs come up and they're like, we're going to rape you if you don't leave. You're not allowed here. This area is not for you. And so it's like, when we're talking about the cultural identity of a land, right? It's like Israel wants this to be a land for the Jews, right? Like they can't have an Arab majority, right? And so it's like, oh, we've got to remove these. It's like, what for America? I'm just, again, trying to put myself in Israel's shoes. Like, what would it look like if we were being completely taken over by radical Islam tomorrow and they were trying to destroy our Christian values as a country? And there were parts, I mean, look at what's happening to Michigan, look at Minneapolis. It's like you have the mayor of Minneapolis who's from like Somalia and he claims that as his homeland. And now you've got Ilhan Omar, who's like obviously almost, I would consider a foreign agent at this point, who's an elected American representative, but yet they're only voting for the interests of foreigners. So it's like, at what point as a nation do we say, like, this is not who we are as a country? Like, and again, I don't know what that even looks like, and I don't know where those lines should be drawn, but like, this is where I'm at, right? I'm like, I don't want America to be taken over by radical Islam. Like, I'm Christian. I feel like we have a pretty good history of being a Christian nation as America, and like even our founders said, what makes America so different is that we're good, right? And if the day we stop being good is the day we stop, being America, and the day we can stop, doing what we need to do. And so I just look at this conflict in Gaza and I'm like, we're not being good here, like this is not moral. And I just think this should be a reckoning moment for us as a country and how we want to deal with these conflicts. And I think if we hold Israel accountable for what they're doing to the Palestinian people, I think it will have downstream impacts on how we treat conflicts like what's happening in Yemen and what's happening in Africa. And I think we'll just evolve. I think like this is our moral moment. Like this is us as Americans saying, what are we going to tolerate? What do we tolerate genocide? Do we tolerate ethnic cleansing? Do we like all for what? Like for a collective people to have power over their land, or and how do they displace people? So it's like, what would we as Americans do if we felt like our lands were being invaded by an enemy, foreign enemy, right? It's like we're having deportations right now because we've been foreignly invaded by non-citizens who are taking advantage of our welfare system. And so what are we doing? We're having mass deportations right now. And I think that was required. That was necessary. It's like I support Trump in this deportation effort because we were invaded as a country, right? And so it's like, but are we genociding people, right? Like, are we putting these people in concentration camps, taking away their rights and mass murdering them? Like, no, right? So I think we have to hold Israel to a higher standard. It's like, and again, I'm no expert. I don't know exactly what the end all solution looks like, but at least we're seeing Arab nation buy-in at this point. The groups that used to support Hamas, Qatar and Egypt, are now saying it's time to lay down your arms. You got your time's done, right? We're coming. We're figuring something else out here, and that speaks to the Abraham Accords, and it speaks to the progress that we have made diplomatically with these countries that used to support these proxy terrorist groups that Iran was funding, and so I'm optimistic. I see a silver lining here, where we see these Arab nations really coming together and demanding peace on a new level that, for decades, we just let the Houthis and Hamas run wild and shoot their weapons, and Qatar and Egypt look the other way. And now we've got them at the table and they're demanding.
Well, I think that brings it full circle to like what we were talking about at the initial point, is like when you can get all the different sides that disagree to get to the same bargaining table.
Yep.
That's like the only way we can have a win. I mean, I think that's a great ending point. I mean, I think it's awesome. And I hope if anything, people watch this and can start asking questions.
Yeah. It ties full circle. Cause at the end of the day, imagine if Qatar and Egypt weren't, willing to take our phone call.
Yeah.
Because we had ostracized them as terrorist organizations, and it's like, what can we as Utah political people do to keep ourselves at the same table, right? And I think trying to fight against these notions of like, oh my gosh, like, he was against me on this one issue, so he's the enemy. I'm never going to take his phone call, or I'm going to, go.
I'm going to hate him even if he does something good. I'm never going to talk to him again.
Yeah, exactly. And it just now what? Now we're never able to work together on issues where that issue comes up, and I'm like, oh wow, like these are my people on this issue, and I need them, but now they won't talk to me because they, it's this prior issue over here. I disagreed with them, and I think at the end of the day, we need to have greater, I don't know, it's just, let's all give each other a little bit more grace and realize that it's okay to disagree, and we're going to find ourselves on the opposite sides of certain issues. But it's like, hey, let's have a phone call, let's work it out. And that's happened, at least on this. I've had many phone calls. Dude, you got to stop talking about this. Like you got to realize like Hamas is the enemy here, and they're actually starving the people. And I'm like, oh well, let's look at the aid organizations on the ground saying completely different thing. And so we work that out. But by the end of it, we get to a good place where I better understand. Like, okay, this is where you're coming from. But again, a month ago, I didn't even know about any of this stuff. You know what I mean? I hadn't even opened myself up to exposing myself to this evidence and this new information. And just by opening my heart and my mind to let me just try to understand where these people are coming from so that I can at least empathize a little bit better with their cause and hopefully help barter peace for these people, or at least have a better idea of how can we get to peace? How can we help work these issues out so that we can, at the end of the day, stop murdering innocent women and children?
Well, I think that's the thing, is we need to at least open our eyes and be able to have conversations.
Yeah.
So, that's a great ending point, man. Thank you so much.
Dude, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.